presentation is Milena Dobreva from the University of Malta, and she is presenting a collaborative project. Her partners are not here, but they are Edel, Jennings, Georgina Portelli, and Pierre Portelli, and I'm looking forward to hearing from Milena. Do you want to set yourself up? And I'll just give you a shout when you've got 5 minutes. Yes.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay, so it's a pleasure to be here at the final event of the network. I was here once earlier for the event which dealt with crowdsourcing and citizen science. And I hope that some of you attended this event because those 2 examples I will be discussing today are related to this topic. My co-authors come from the Waterford Institute of Technology in Ireland, and from the Coordinating Board for Cultural Projects of Malta, and another colleague from the University of Malta. I will tell more about them when we discuss the different projects. So I will start with this topic of nasty comments. This is something which Agiatis Bernardou was introducing extensively yesterday as the thing which helps us to improve what we are offering to our users. But I will use it also to give some thoughts on the evaluation culture and some of the shortcomings as I see it from my experience. Then I will present the 2 case studies. The first one is on place names in rural Ireland, and the second one is on the history of tattooing in Malta. 2 very different topics, and one definitely would ask why they come together, and can we do some sense and some comparison when we deal with so different areas. And then we will move to hopefully some lessons and what are the desired and undesired consequences in projects of this type. So the nasty comments in some cases are comments which could seem nasty because we have very fixed ideas what our users should do and how exactly they should behave. This is a very historical cartoon. We moved away from it, and these days we are not coming with such rigid expectations about what our users should do. But I think that in some cases we can actually target some of those nasty comments to ourselves because we don't build enough on work which was done beforehand. If you look at different types of user studies, we now have a wide range of methods which we are using. In these 2 days we saw lots of different examples, so I will have a very quick run through how outcomes of user studies look like typically, and how actually we integrate them in our work. So now this is a small reference to a project which was coordinated by the chair of this session, Lorna Hughes, which looked at how the digitized collection of the Parliament of Northern Ireland is being used. And we can see a typical outcome on the top, which is transcripts from interviews. We just saw some in the paper beforehand. And also we can see some analytics from the actual use of the resource. One of these methods involves directly users of the resource, and the other just looks at the evidence what those users are doing. And the first is a qualitative method, and the second is a quantitative. In the interviews, obviously, we work with different individuals, but we look for common trends. In the analysis of the web usage of the resource, we have the whole population which uses this resource to different types of methods. Another very typical way we present our results are such diagrams. This one comes from summarizing the outcomes of a focus group, which looked at how web content is evaluated by students, how they make their choices, what to use. So this is a quantitative outcome. from a qualitative study, in fact, and we have a sample of users, but this is not a statistically significant sample. Another way we can present results is if we use very specific metrics from the area of information retrieval. Here we have comparison of the precision based on searches in 2 different digital libraries. So these are quantitative information retrieval metrics. We didn't hear much about them, but they're very essential for servicing better our users in general and knowing which comparable resources give them some advantages. Then that's a historical diagram which shows the use of Europeana in 2009. Another outcome which is based on what the web users of a resource are doing. So this is quantitative, and we have the whole population here. Another interesting type of outcome which was discussed in one of the resources, and this is another historical slide with the first study of the Europeana interface. This was the prototype interface in 2010. Shows where the users are concentrating their gaze, and this is another quantitative method which is based on studying individual users. Now I like this one, which summarizes different user study methods in defining a persona. This description is not very deep, but this is one of the personas used in Europeana some years ago. And I would call this a summative method because it takes the characteristics of specific small group of people, but distinct group in what they want to do with the resource. So in a way, it looks like we are spoiled for choice. I didn't include here how it looks when somebody crawls on their knees, the example from this morning, to see how children are seeing things around in the museum, because this probably would look painful. But we also can do such ethnographic studies. We can do also cognitive walkthroughs and so on. The idea was not to summarize all existing methods, but just to give different snippets. And we have so many different opportunities that sometimes our challenge is to decide which one we are going to use. But we also have this objective difficulty to find enough studies which study the same digital resource in development using different methods, to compare the periodic assessments of the same resource in development. And this understanding pushed us to look at 2 different cases of similar projects and to see if we can compare them, where we can compare them. Can we come, after all, when we have different situations, to some set of metrics which can be applied in similar cases? So the first case study looks at place names in rural Ireland. This was a pilot which was implemented within the frameworks of a project called Civic Epistemologies. It was implemented in 2014-2015 with funding coming from the European Commission. The project looked at citizen science. This is the involvement of people who are not professionally trained to do research in contributing to projects which have some research value or outcome. And in many cases, there is a big debate: what is citizen science? Is it the same as crowdsourcing? In our understanding, crowdsourcing is one of the methods which can be applied in this context. So the concept of this project was that digital natives can use their expert digital recording skills on their own devices to capture cultural heritage knowledge from senior citizens, which otherwise will be lost. In traditional projects like this, we would have a standardized protocol and probably recommendations for the devices, protocols, and so on. But in this project, the idea was to involve young people from secondary schools in the design of the whole exercise, not to have a rigid instruction from somebody who approaches it from the position of an oral history expert, but to push them to come with their own solutions. There was this ambition that digital technology is the emerging cultural heritage for these young people. So we wanted to make a stronger connection with this aspect. And then there was this question, can we leverage the cognitive surplus to access the collective wisdom through social technical approaches to overcome the digital and generational divide? This pilot was organized by my colleague Edel Jennings from the Waterford University of Technology in Ireland. She worked with secondary schools which advertised the opportunity, and then she worked with the school children with whom the ideas how to capture the information about historical place names from elderly Irish was developed. Further, actually, the idea is not new. Over a decade earlier, at a conference, there was this call to collect more from the local knowledge with the help of schools and senior citizens. These are some moments from the design exercise. And the project was considered successful. In the time of its implementation, the students engaged well. However, if we take the framework on engagement of Elaine Thoms, where the different stages are the point of engagement, the engagement process, and then the point of disengagement. What is interesting is that this hasn't become something which the students would do after the project officially finished. So that's quite interesting. It's quite, I think, innovative how secondary school students were involved in the co-design. There were a number of stages going through the desk research, also through the traditional approvals by ethics committees, consent forms. Actually, we start with all these necessary preparatory measures which take a lot of time and preparation. But then the workshops which were held with the students were very interesting, and their approaches and their take on how to use technology. The other case study is a work which is still in progress in this year. It's done within the context of a Maltese national project funded by the Malta Arts Council, and the title of the project is Relink, Indelible Narratives. The aim of this project is to collect evidence, and actually the main interest is on images from historical tattoos from the beginning of the 20th century. So what can we do to gather such images? Obviously, we can look at various documentary collections, but we also can try to find what are the memories of families which had family members with tattoos, and whether they have some evidence on the tattoos and some images. Something which illustrates how complicated is this topic comes from the American history, from the famous Liberty Bell, where apparently there was a Maltese who took part in making the bell. His name was John Pace in Maltese, which became John Pass. This family is still living in Philadelphia, and they know that they are of Maltese descent. They don't have any images, obviously, of the tattoo of their predecessor. And that's a painting which shows his arm, which has the Maltese cross. So that's a very good question now, because this painting was done about 8 years later. Was there a tattoo on the arm of this Maltese person, or this was just the artistic way to show that this was the Maltese guy who took part in the in making the Liberty Bell. If we look at documentary sources which can help us to identify how popular was tattooing, here are the passport applications which are stored in the National Archives of Malta. We looked at literally thousands of them, and we counted that those people who had professions related to the sea, about 14 to 15% of them had tattoos. The area which is encircled in red shows one such record, and it's very interesting. There was a first record which was more detailed, which was explaining what was the tattoo exactly, and then somebody crossed it over and said tattooed on left arm. So that's also some evidence, but obviously we don't have the images here. In certain times the passport applications had photographs, but it's very rare. I don't think that we actually discovered any photograph which shows a visible tattoo, because obviously these are face photographs. If these were not tears, which is quite a special type of tattoo, you wouldn't see anything. Another historical source, since lots of Maltese people who worked on ships actually were moving around and went to Marseille in France, comes from the French police record. Here is, on the left side, we can see a private album of French criminals, and on the right we can see a document which shows the record on a particular Maltese criminal which was imprisoned, and in the bottom there is a description of a tattoo. So again, in some cases we can find verbal descriptions. So what we can do with those? Obviously we don't have the images necessarily in most cases, but we can try to trace the families, and we can try to see if the families keep any memories or any images. And this is what we are doing. It's a very difficult process, takes a lot of time, and in this process we also involve students from our university. So here we have a different group of young people. What we arrived to is some personal stories like these two presented here. So the gentleman on the left, his name is Paulo, was sharing memory from his childhood, how he went with two friends to look for a tattooist who was renowned and who was known as Edel. And then the second one comes actually from someone who is British, but had about 56 visits to Malta, so that's quite interesting. You could see that this is a different time period, and he had his tattoos made in the UK. But it's just a glimpse into what stories you can come to. Obviously, not all of these stories are relevant to our period of interest, but we are trying to see what is the more general context. So here we didn't involve secondary school students, but university students, as I said. They were not involved in the co-design, but in the interview process. In Malta, it's very important when you interview the elderly to have people who are fluent in Maltese. Actually, there was an interesting example of an oral history project in the US with the Maltese community where the interviewees were not knowledgeable, and this was a complete disaster. It didn't arrive to anything. So let's briefly look at the lessons. If we take as a starting point the classification of Johan Omen and Laura Arroyo on crowdsourcing and different inputs it can provide. Here basically we speak about contextualization and complementing collections from all possible options. We can come with various similarities. Besides that, the Irish project in a way was really interesting for us with this connection between the different generations and how it approached it. We see that basically the ingenuity, the generosity, the willingness to network are essential. That's probably something common for all such projects. And I would say that one very important similarity is that sustainability requires ongoing investment and support. We can see this because these are not areas in which either of these two initiatives or projects manage to engage a huge network which then will self-sustain the effort. There are also differences. In Ireland, there was the involvement of students in the design. In Malta, we have something which is specific. We have to design a good description schema to put our material in digital form, and it's not easy to find an existing one, so probably we will have to come with our own solution. We also had an expectation that the tattoo history will be of interest to the younger generations due to their interest to tattoos in general, but actually it's the generation which follows the elderly which is most touched by this topic of early tattoos in the family. And in both cases, we believe that the participation was transformative for those who took part. This is captured only by the feedback of those people who were involved. So what are the desired and undesired consequences? Basically, we can look at several areas. Our desire is to have lots of contributions. Our desire is to have growing networks. Also, we want to receive everything in perfect quality, if possible. We also want to guarantee long-term engagement and an engagement which will continue after our effort is finished, if this is within a particular project context, as it happens. And we also want to see how, especially when we involve the young people, what innovative aspects of the use of digital content will appear. So this is desired. What appears as undesired is, as I mentioned, we didn't see such an extended engagement in Ireland, so we will have to see if we will arrive to something better in Malta. The contributions were helpful and very useful, but the quality always has to be checked. That's something which is common sense. And as I said, I would be happy to find out that we have some ways to objectively measure differences in initiatives which have some similarities as the ones we have, and I hope that maybe Jennings will tell us how to do this in the future in a better way. For the time being, we are exploring and we are trying to arrive to some commonalities and see how this can be of help to the wider communities. Thanks very much. This is my last slide. I think that we have a strategic task. This comes from European. I think Harry is gone. A very popular slide which says that about 90% of the European cultural heritage is not digitized, about 10% is digitized, but there is a lot of work to do in both cases, in the huge pile which is not digitized and in the already digitized which has to be contextualized better. So if we know how to do such projects better, we will contribute to shift the tip of this iceberg, I think, down. Thank you.